Have you ever wondered why some of Elvis Presley's movie songs make you cringe and smile at the same time? Did the king of rock and roll really sing about yoga and shrimp? Number 7. Yoga is as yoga does, from Easy Come, Easy Go. 1967. Ever seen Elvis in a turban trying to explain yoga? This bizarre musical moment happened in Easy Come, Easy Go, one of Elvis's later films when his movie career was already heading south faster than a speedboat. By 1967, Elvis was cranking out 3 movies a year, and the quality control had long left the building. Elvis plays a Navy frogman turned treasure hunter in his forgettable flick, and somehow finds himself in a yoga studio singing about the benefits of breathing exercises. The song features Elvis awkwardly chanting, "Yoga is as yoga does," while attempting to fold himself into yoga positions that would make any actual yogi laugh out loud. The lyrics include wisdom like, "Bend yourself like a pretzel, twist yourself like a screw," delivered with a straight face by the king himself. Filmed during an era when Eastern practices were becoming trendy in America, but were still widely misunderstood, Elvis looks visibly uncomfortable performing these moves in his tight pants. Behind the scenes, Elvis reportedly hated this song with a passion. By this point in his career, Presley had little creative control over his film soundtracks. The once revolutionary rock and roll icon was reduced to singing about lotus positions while surrounded by women in bizarre mock Indian costumes. The instrumental backing sounds like what a 1960s Hollywood composer imagined Indian music might be, full of stereotypical exotic sounds and tinkling bells. The song was written by Sid Tepper and Roy C. Bennett, who penned dozens of songs for Elvis movies. They were talented songwriters who had written some decent material for Elvis earlier in his career. But by this point, even they seemed to be phoning it in. It's like they spent 5 minutes researching yoga, tossed in some rhyming dictionary finds, and called it a day. Despite how ridiculous it is, or perhaps because of it, yoga is as yoga does, has developed a cult following among Elvis fans. It represents everything wrong with Presley's movie career, yet somehow everything lovable about it too. The song is so painfully of its time, and so earnestly performed, that it transcends bad and becomes an endearing time capsule of 1960s cultural appropriation and Hollywood's clueless attempts to capitalize on counterculture trends. Number 6. Song of the Shrimp, from Girls, Girls, Girls. 1962. Can you imagine Elvis Presley, the hip swiveling rock and roll rebel, singing a lullaby from the perspective of a shrimp? In Girls, 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 Elvis plays a fishing boat captain who somehow finds time to perform this bizarre aquatic ballad about the life and death of a tiny crustacean. Song of the Shrimp tells the tale of a baby shrimp whose mother warns him about the dangers of swimming too close to fishing nets. The shrimp naturally doesn't listen and meets a tragic end. Elvis croons this nautical nursery rhyme with surprising tenderness, as if he's truly mourning the demise of the titular shellfish. The lyrics include gems like, "Mama Shrimp said to baby shrimp, 'What makes you look so pale? I see your bubble going up instead of down the scale.'" The song features a gentle, almost Caribbean-inspired arrangement, with steel drums and a lullaby-like melody. It's actually quite beautifully produced, which makes it all the more bizarre that this level of musical craftsmanship went into a song about talking shrimp. The contrast between the ridiculous concept and the sincere delivery creates a strange musical experience that's both laughable and oddly touching. Girls, Girls was one of Elvis's more successful films of the 1960s, but even then critics were baffled by this fishy interlude. Behind the scenes, Elvis reportedly approached the song with good humor, even though it was miles away from the rock and roll that made him famous. By 1962, Elvis had already recorded classics like Heartbreak Hotel, Hound Dog, and Jailhouse Rock, only to find himself empathizing with seafood on screen. The song was written by Sid Wayne and Ben Wiesman, who were regular contributors to Elvis's movie soundtracks. In a later interview, Wiesman admitted that the song was conceived as a children's tune that somehow found its way into the film. The Jordanaires' Elvis, longtime backing vocalists, provide gentle harmonies that add to the lullaby quality of this strange sea shanty. Despite its oddity, or perhaps because of it, Song of the Shrimp has become a favorite among Elvis collectors and fans who appreciate the weirder corners of his catalog. There's something almost surreal about hearing one of the most influential voices in music history singing seriously about shrimp family dynamics. The song is so bizarre that it circles back around to charming, becoming a perfect example of the strange musical territory Elvis was forced to navigate during his Hollywood years. Number 5. Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce from Girl Happy, 1965. Did Elvis really sing an advertisement disguised as a song? In Girl Happy, one of Elvis's beach party movies, Presley performs what amounts to a tourism jingle for Fort Lauderdale, Florida. That's so on the nose it would make a marketing executive blush. This upbeat number has Elvis extolling the virtues of Fort Lauderdale as the ultimate spring break destination. He enthusiastically describes the city as where the boys are, where the boys are, where they keep the girls they love to guard, and promises 20,000 college men and 40,000 college women. It's essentially a 3-minute commercial for spring break tourism disguised as a rock and roll song. The track features a bouncy surf rock, inspired arrangement with saxophone honks and a driving beat. Elvis delivers the lyrics with his trademark enthusiasm, somehow making this blatant piece of geographical promotion sound like an actual song. The background vocals repeat Fort Lauderdale with such insistence that you half expect a Visit Florida logo to appear on screen. Girl Happy was part of Elvis' beach movie phase, when Hal Wallace Productions was trying to capitalize on the success of films like Beach Party, with Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello. Elvis plays a band leader hired to secretly chaperone a hotel magnate's daughter during spring break. The film was shot nowhere near Florida. Typical Hollywood magic at work, with most scenes filmed on sound stages and at locations around California. The song was written by Gabriel Kaplan and Sid Wayne, who were tasked with creating music that would appeal to the teen demographic, while promoting the spring break setting of the film. The Chamber of Commerce likely didn't pay for this musical placement, but they certainly couldn't have asked for a more direct promotional tool. One wonders if tourism numbers spiked after the film's release. What makes this song so fascinatingly bad is how transparently commercial it is, yet Elvis performs it with genuine enthusiasm. There's no wink at the audience, no acknowledgement of how silly it is to be singing a geographically specific advertisement. The king commits fully, making this tourist board jingle weirdly, compelling despite its obvious purpose. Today, Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce stands as a perfect time capsule of 1960s spring break culture and Hollywood, marketing thinly disguised as entertainment. It's so unsubtle and earnest in its promotional aims that it becomes almost endearing, a relic from an era when product placement hadn't yet learned subtlety. Number 4. Barefoot Ballad from Kissin' Cousins, 1964. Can a song about not wearing shoes be a social statement? In Kissin' Cousins, one of Elvis's most peculiar films, the king performs Barefoot Ballad, a song that takes the simple act of going shoeless and turns it into an anthem about rural freedom and rejection of modern living. Barefoot Ballad has Elvis extolling the virtues of walking barefoot through the hills of Tennessee with lyrics like, "I don't need no shoes upon my feet, they just slow me down." The song portrays going barefoot, not just as a comfort choice, but as a philosophical stance against civilization's constraints. Elvis sings about how city folks, with their fancy footwear, don't understand the joys of direct contact with nature. The musical arrangement is a strange hybrid of country folk and rock elements, with a jaunty rhythm and exaggerated hillbilly styling. Elvis adopts an exaggerated country accent for the performance, leaning hard into the backwoods character he plays in the film. The backing vocals add enthusiastic yee-haws and country flourishes that push the whole production into caricature territory. Kissin' Cousins was one of Elvis's worst films, rushed into production on a tiny budget. Elvis plays dual roles as an Air Force officer, and his hillbilly look-alike cousin with blonde hair dye for the latter character. The film perpetuates every stereotype about Appalachian Mountain people, and Barefoot Ballad is perhaps the musical embodiment of this problematic portrayal. The song was written by Fred Wise and Randy Starr, seemingly with the directive to create something mountain-yay, without much concern for authenticity. What makes it fascinating is how it takes a minor cultural detail, not wearing shoes, and inflates it into a defining characteristic and philosophical stance. The lyrics present barefoot walking as not just a preference, but a declaration of independence from modern society's constraints. Behind the scenes, Elvis reportedly disliked the film and its music. By this point in his Hollywood career, Presley was becoming increasingly frustrated with the low-quality material he was being given. Kissin' Cousins was filmed in just 18 days, and the music was recorded with similar haste. Today, Barefoot Ballad stands as a perfect example of Hollywood's tone-deaf portrayal of rural America in the 1960s. It's so over-the-top in its hillbilly stereotyping that it becomes unintentionally funny, a song so committed to its misguided concept that it circles back to being entertaining. The earnestness with which Elvis delivers lines about tough feet and freedom makes this weird little song strangely memorable despite its many problems. Number 3. Patunia, the Gardener's Daughter, from Frankie and Johnny, 1966. Have you ever wondered what Elvis would sound like performing a vaudeville song from the 1910s? In Frankie and Johnny, a period musical set during the Riverboat era, Elvis sings Patunia, the Gardener's Daughter, a song so deliberately old-fashioned and corny that it feels like a parody of old-time music hall numbers. The song tells the story of Patunia, whose father grows vegetables with special romantic properties. There are lyrics about potatoes that make you want to propose, and carrots that make girls lose their reserve. Elvis delivers lines like her daddy raised tomatoes that would make a fellow want to wed. So feed your girl these vegetables before you take her home to bed with a straight face while dancing in a ridiculously oversized boater hat and striped suit. The arrangement is pure vaudeville, complete with honky-tonk piano, tuba, banjo, and clarinet. Elvis performs the song with exaggerated movements and facial expressions, fully committing to the music hall style, despite how far removed it is from his natural rock and roll persona. The visual performance includes Elvis dancing awkwardly with a gardening hoe and making exaggerated winks and nudges at the sexual innuendos in the lyrics. Frankie and Johnny was Elvis's attempt at a period musical set in 1870s New Orleans. The film was a box office disappointment, with critics noting that Elvis seemed out of place in the historical setting. The songs were deliberately written to sound like they could have existed in the late 19th century, which meant Elvis was singing material that sounded like it was from his grandfather's era rather than his own. The song was written by Fred Karger and Sid Wayne, who were tasked with creating authentic-sounding period music. What makes it so fascinating is how thoroughly Elvis commits to a style that couldn't be further from his musical roots. There's something almost admirable about how completely he transforms into a vaudeville performer, abandoning any trace of the rock and roll rebel that made him famous. Behind the scenes, Elvis was growing increasingly frustrated with his film career by this point. He had been making about 3 movies a year since returning from the Army in 1960, with diminishing quality and increasingly bizarre material. Patunia, the gardener's daughter, represents the strange musical territory Elvis was forced to explore as Hollywood pushed him further from his strengths. The song is so deliberately antiquated and performed with such commitment to its dated style that it becomes fascinating to watch. It's like seeing a musical time traveler, one of rock and roll's founding fathers, purposely regressing to perform music from decades before his birth. The sheer oddity of this juxtaposition makes Patunia so bad it's good, a bizarre curiosity in Elvis's vast catalog. Number 2. No Room to Rumba in a Sports Car, from Fun in Acapulco. 1963. Can you dance the rumba in a tiny car? According to this peculiar Elvis movie song, the answer is definitively no. In Fun in Acapulco, Elvis performs No Room to Rumba in a Sports Car, a novelty song that takes a single joke, small cars aren't good for dancing, and stretches it to over 2 minutes. The premise is exactly what the title suggests. Elvis laments that while his sports car is good for impressing girls, it's simply too cramped for dancing the rumba. He sings about how his date wants to dance, but there's no room to rumba in a sports car. 2 people can't move in a little MG. The solution, according to the song, is to park somewhere and dance outside the vehicle. Musically, the track features a Latin-inspired arrangement with bongos, maracas, and Spanish guitar flourishes, creating a pastiche of Mexican music to match the Acapulco setting. Elvis delivers the lyrics with enthusiasm and a playful tone, somehow managing to make this one-joke song reasonably entertaining through sheer charisma. The background vocalists contribute enthusiastic rumba, rumba chants that add to the festive atmosphere. Fun in Acapulco was one of Elvis's more successful musical comedies, featuring the King as a former trapeze artist, working as a lifeguard and singer in Mexico. Interestingly, Elvis never actually set foot in Mexico for filming. All his scenes were shot in Hollywood, with second-unit footage of Acapulco spliced in. Ursula Andress Coe starred fresh from her iconic appearance in the first James Bond film, Dr. No. The song was written by Sid Wayne and Ben Wiesman, who contributed to numerous Elvis movie soundtracks. Their task was to create songs that fit the Mexican setting while maintaining the upbeat commercial appeal expected of Elvis's movie songs. No Room to Rumba certainly achieves a sort of tourist brochure version of Latin flavor. What makes this song so entertainingly bad is its commitment to a paper-thin premise. It takes a joke that could barely sustain a greeting card and turns it into a full song, complete with verses, chorus, and instrumental breaks. There's something almost admirable about how thoroughly it explores its single joke about automotive dancing limitations. The track was actually released as the B-side to the Fun in Acapulco single, and surprisingly received some radio play. This speaks to Elvis's enduring popularity. Even his most ridiculous movie songs could find an audience simply because they were performed by the king of rock and roll. Today, No Room to Rumba in a Sports Car stands as a perfect example of the novelty songs that populated Elvis' film career. Lightweight, silly, and far removed from the ground-reigning rock and roll that made him famous. Yet there's an innocent charm to its simplicity and the enthusiasm with which Elvis delivers this ridiculous concept, making it so bad it's almost good. Number 1. Do the Clam from Girl Happy. 1965. Did Elvis really try to start a dance craze based on a shellfish? In Girl Happy, Elvis performs Do the Clam, perhaps the most infamous of his attempt to launch a movie-based dance craze, following in the tradition of the twist, but with considerably less cultural impact. The song instructs listeners on how to perform a new dance called the Clam, which involves opening and closing your arms like a clamshell while swiveling your hips. Elvis enthusiastically describes this movement with lyrics like, "Do the clam, dig in and dig them clams," and "Close your hands and then open up your hands and close them up again." The dance instructions are painfully literal, leaving nothing to the imagination. Musically, Do the Clam features a driving surf rock beat, prominent saxophone, and the backing vocals of the Jordanaires repeating "Do the Clam" with surprising conviction. Elvis performs with his trademark energy, somehow maintaining his cool despite the inherently uncool concept. The recording is actually quite polished and professional, with a catchy melody that sticks in your head despite the ridiculous lyrics. In the film, Elvis performs the song on a crowded beach, leading hordes of swimsuit-clad extras through the clam-inspired movements. The choreography is exactly what you'd expect, arms opening and closing while hips shake, executed with the kind of commitment that only professional dancers pretending to enjoy a nonsensical dance craze can deliver. Girl Happy was part of Elvis's beach movie phase, attempting to capitalize on the popularity of surf culture and teen beach films of the mid-1960s. By this point, Elvis had been making formulaic musical comedies for years, with increasingly diminishing returns in terms of quality and box office performance. The song was written by Bernie, Bomb Bill Giant, and Florence Kay, who were tasked with creating a dance tune that could potentially catch on like previous dance crazes. Dance instruction. Songs were popular in the early 1960s, with hits like The Twist, The Mashed Potato, and The Locomotion, all achieving massive success. Do the Clam was a transparent attempt to join this tradition, though it never caught on outside the film. What makes Do the Clam so fascinatingly bad is its desperate attempt to manufacture a dance craze that nobody asked for. The song takes itself completely seriously while describing a dance move based on a bivalve mollusk. There's no wink to the audience, no acknowledgement of how silly the concept is, just Elvis Presley, one of the most influential musical figures of the 20th century, earnestly telling people to pretend they're clams. Despite its obvious commercialism and ridiculous concept, Do the Clam is surprisingly catchy and energetically performed. The production is slick, the band is tight, and Elvis delivers the lyrics with the same commitment he gave to his greatest hits. This contrast between the absurd content and the professional execution is what pushes Do the Clam into the realm of so bad it's good. Ever wondered if Elvis himself secretly cringed when recording songs about shellfish and sports car limitations. Would the king of rock and roll have believed that decades later, fans would collect these musical oddities with the same enthusiasm as his greatest hits?